As I was growing up, I was given kind of the ideal vision of government and democracy. For example, I thought that the 9 Supreme Court justices were the smartest, the brightest, above reproach. That image has been tainted recently, particularly with Justice Thomas and Scalia politicizing the courts. But I was also taught that with the separation of powers, our founding fathers intended democracy to be based on majority rule rather than supermajority rule. And that's why Common Cause, which I work on, has been concerned about the abuse of the filibuster and the abuse of rules and regulations in the United States Senate that is blocking so much of the important legislation that needs to be considered in a bipartisan, nonpartisan way. I discovered that things were changing after I left Congress and began a career working in education and in the faith community. When I served in Congress, special interest groups brought their talking points first. They watched how you voted, and the people who didn't like the way you voted, they didn't bother you very much. They were out trying to get you defeated. But in those days, it used to be talking points first, now it's money first. We used to have smoke-filled rooms, now we have money-filled rooms. Over the last few years, particularly with the Citizens United decision, where the Supreme Court voted 5-4 to give corporations and labor unions the ability to dip into their corporate treasury, there's just been an exponential, a huge increase in the amount of money, and I believe that money is corroding our system. We have the best Congress that money can buy. We have congressmen and senators who want to be reelected, want to have their office for life, who start weaving, both Democrats and Republicans, their voting record because they know which special interest groups they can receive money from. And now, because of Citizens United, they have the threat that if they vote wrong on a particular issue, some rogue corporation or some rogue wealthy person is going to spend a gazillion dollars against them and defeat them for re-election. There's two brothers by the name of David and Charles Koch, the Koch brothers. For 10 years, they've been having semi-secret meetings with the Glenn Becks and the O'Reillys of this world. And we discovered they have also been bringing Supreme Court justices twice a year to their events to think about changing the way people perceive global warming. They've actually set up organizations to put false science together to get reports out that counter basic science on what's happening to the environment. And they can do it because the two brothers have a combined wealth of more than $40 billion. They have the second or third largest private industry, the Koch industries in the country. We saw them in Wisconsin, we saw them in Nebraska and Michigan and other places. And so money is influencing the outcome, but there are also organizations being created and funded by these special interest groups that are putting out false information that is damaging the thoughtful consideration of issues. And I think we live in a fragile world. We don't have the opportunity to have all of that false information playing itself out there. We've got to make some tough decisions on global warming and the environment. I think we're living in a very dangerous moment. Most people have seen the use of independent expenditures when they watch on television or listen in the radio to these hundreds of thousands of commercials that flood the airways as you come up to an election. Individuals who want to participate often form what are called independent organizations. They have different IRS configurations. Under the Citizens United case, because there's little or no disclosure, people can do it anonymously and they can put a pile of money together. Those independent expenditures are used to buy commercials. They're supposed to not coordinate with the candidate that they're for. They simply set it up independently, put it on the air. If I'm a congressman and people like me and they want to set up an independent expenditure organization, if we don't talk to each other, they can put millions of dollars into helping me by now trashing my opponent or by saying what a great person I am. They can just plow that money in without telling people who they are, what corporations they represent, what individual donors that have contributed. Common Cause is working for full disclosure, and even under Citizens United, we want the names and the addresses of all the people who give money to independent expenditures. And if we had our druthers, we would cut off all opportunity for those independent expenditures to take place. I think years ago, the Congress of the United States gave away the store. The airways should have belonged to the people, much like our national parks belong to the people. But we gave that to corporate interest, and we don't have clear and honest news making on the regular channels or on the cable channels. Some of the cable channels have gone to 24/7 politically tainted news, and the regular channels have gone to entertainment news. And fortunately, we've got independent media that kind of sneaks under the surface through e-advocacy and through social media, through the internet, through blogging, through Facebook, through other means we're able to get information. It's harder today. We don't have the investigative reporters that we used to have, and I think that's a problem that's going to hurt us moving forward. But fortunately, there are some people who are speaking truth to power and coming out of the woodwork to give us more factual information, actually. Well, I think the American dream has been tainted and tarnished over the last several years. My hope is that we recognize that we live in a fragile planet. When I was born in 1943, there were about 2 billion people on planet Earth. This year we'll pass 7 billion people on planet Earth. More than half of the world's population, more than the half of all the people who ever lived on planet Earth are alive today. And 95% of everything created by human hands has been created in the last 100 years. My hope for the American dream is that we recognize that we've got to be stewards of a fragile planet. We've got to share the resources of that planet. That includes oil and water and other resources that we've been provided. I think we ought to work on ending the poverty that kills, both here in the United States and around the world. We can do that. We know that that's possible. We just need to have the will to do it. And my hope is that Americans recognize, because the world is changing so much, we can't solve the world's problems by bombing capitals and going into wars like Afghanistan and Iraq. We've got to figure out other peaceful strategies. We're not going to get terrorists who are in 60 countries by bombing nations. We've got to do that through an international police effort. So I would hope that we could lessen the impact of our spending on military and focus that on peacemaking, that we would be stewards of a fragile planet and work on environmental cleanup, and that we would not just talk about the upper class or the middle class, but we'd recognize that the working class, the working poor, also need to be helped. One of the solutions is to really look at the question of money in politics. I think we need to get elected officials who serve the public interest and not the special interest. We are working hard to spread a good virus across the country called public financing. We installed it in Arizona, in Connecticut, and in Maine. In Connecticut in 2008, 74% of the candidates running for the state legislature used our voluntary public financing system, took no special interest money. 81% of them got elected, and for the last 2 years we've had probably the best legislature in Connecticut than they've had in the past. Special interests could still lobby, but they had to lobby with their talking points and not with their checkbooks. This is, I think, one possible solution. I think the other is we need to open up the airways. Why is it that we don't go back to forcing television and radio owners to apply for their licenses, to give 60 hours of public service on a weekly basis? Why is it not possible that 60 days before an election, those airways get opened up for free access to the elected officials and to the candidates running for office, not to put on artificial commercials made in Hollywood, but to put themselves in front of the camera so that we would know where the candidates stand on particular issues. Common Cause was founded 40 years ago by John Gardner, who was a Renaissance person. He was a moderate Republican when there were moderate Republicans who believed everybody had special interest in Washington but average, ordinary citizens. I am pleased to walk in his shoes and to try to provide some opportunity for average citizens to get involved. I'd suggest 3 specific things. 1, vote, get your neighbors to vote, get your kids to vote. I'd like to see every infant born in the United States registered to vote at birth. I don't think we should even have a question about registration. It's a silly thing. At age 18, I want those young people at 18 to get the same ceremony that immigrants get, to understand the value of voting. Let's get 80 and 90% of our people voting. And let's vote for people, not political parties. Let's vote for those people that can best represent the communities. And let's get a real democracy that's based for and by the people. Secondly, I want people to get engaged in the political conversation. I want them to attend public forums. I want them to have face-to-face opportunities with elected officials. The best way to lobby an elected official is face contact with that official. Don't wait for the House and Senate and the President to fix the problems we face as a nation. I think we, the people, have to stand up, take ownership of our government, reduce the impact of money, reduce the impact of corporate interest. People have to recognize that they are the leaders we've been waiting for.